Hi, I'm Codeweaver. I'm here playing a quick jaunt of 3 short parts into Outer Wilds, a fantastic story-heavy game of mystery and space exploration. This is not a comprehensive tutorial or any kind of walkthrough. This will, in fact, try its hardest to not reveal any story bits in a meaningful way. I have a different task in mind. That said, I really encourage you to go experience this game for yourself, fully blind. What this is actually about is what you might want to know to minimally get around in the spaceflight part of the game, and questions about the time available to you to explore things. Maybe a point or two to make ground movement easier and time more efficient, and then at the end some space runs and planet walks to illustrate the time you really have. If you want to get to the spaceflight stuff, skip forward to around the 7-minute mark. I'll spend about 8 minutes going through some basic spaceflight stuff, about 12 minutes going through some slightly more manual flight stuff, and then about 25 minutes showing how much searching around you could do without giving much away. On to the preamble then, where I talk about why I'm making this video. This is actually a philosophical response about a friend's recent terrible experience with this game, where I found it to be one of my favorites. Really, I'm not fooling. If you like science fiction and space themes, and you like thought-provoking mystery like me, and you don't mind a little flying around, and you have a good sense of humor about repeated death, and at least some patience, go get this, now. Lots of people with no experience directly in any of these things have streamed successful plays into this game. There's a reason it got at least one Game of the Year award. Recently, I picked up this game for a new friend of mine. Well, that may be a bit of generous to claim, given that he didn't like this game that I encouraged him to play, so we'll see if I'll be forgiven for that. Anyway, it's one of my top 10 favorite games, at least in lore and storytelling motifs, mostly because I'm a major story fiend and I find compelling narrative when wrapped up in at least halfway competent gameplay to be the bee's knees. For this new friend who streams games a lot, he had a laundry list of things that bugged him, most of which either didn't bug me or I found fantastic. And that's fine, this isn't for everyone. Still, one of the things that bothered him was the flight mechanic, and I won't go into the back and forth because it's not that important. It's a game. And if it's not fun for him, it's not fun for him, full stop. No appeals are going to fix that any more than I can convince you what your favorite ice cream is. And if that stops him getting the other things in the game, the actual reasons I thought he might like it, then, well, I should have read the room a little better. That's where this video started. I thought this game might appeal to him on story fronts because of another game he played, One Shot, which we both adore. Seriously, go get that one too if you like RPGs with lovely stories and characters and lore, and a primary character too precious for this world. Its relationship to this game is at best tangential. It was the exploratory story and lore aspects I wanted to get his opinion on mostly. But we hit a roadblock, so let's talk 2 things. 1. The game has a regular and repeating time pressure, something tied inextricably to the story elements of the game. This immediately implies that once this situation starts, there is a strict time limit on what you can accomplish before time runs out. I didn't tell my friend this because I wanted him to go into the game with no spoilers. Turns out this bugs him a lot. Okay, but maybe he could work with this, or maybe he could make it work for him. Maybe that's not a deal breaker. The second situation is that the spaceflight mechanics are very purely Newtonian physics. There is an autopilot that can help out anyone who just wants to do the bare minimum flying. Lots of streamers have proven that it's not that hard to do if you have a sense of humor about death and get some practice. If you get frustrated by this part for any reason, even with the assistance and even with the 0G practice you go through in the tutorial section, you're in for bad time. And I should point out that my friend is an accomplished pilot in space games already. I think he came into this with different expectations than he got, and that's okay too. But you put all this together, you put these 2 together, and you get the recipe for my causing my new friend some frankly totally justifiable results and having exactly the opposite reaction to this game that I did. Because if you spend all your time fighting with the controls, you can't get anywhere quickly. And if you can't get anywhere quickly, you can't spend enough time during time pressure situations in order to learn things. This is such a lore-heavy game, and in fact the whole point of this lovely game, that the minigame of flight would ruin everything. The thing is, it wasn't a blocker for me. None of these were blockers in the slightest. I delighted in the challenge of exploring the very limits of this space, and the very limits of the time that I had. I found the primitive spaceflight mechanics fit the theme of the game perfectly, even if I totally used the autopilot when I got bored of holding down thrust buttons. So, I'm here to address two questions at once. How easy could it be for a layman to use the flight mechanics to get places, if I can do that having already gotten some practice? If they're not into the style of flight of the game, and how much time do you have to look around once you get there? So first, some flying, without consideration of time, for a few minutes, as I mentioned before, to go over some really basic things about the game's flying and a few other quality of life issues. And then later, some faster flying timing runs. So we're on the launch pad at Timber Hearth. We're going to take off in a minute, and I'm going to show you the sequence of events that can get you to where you want to go. I'm going to keep this pretty basic. If you don't enjoy flight or you think the flight should work in a different way, maybe some part of this is actually for you so you can get to the rest of the game. I'll get a hair more advanced as I go. You can see my hands on my mouse and keyboard so that you can loosely see when I'm operating controls, but also when I'm not operating them at all. Don't be scared, this is mostly to show you when I'm not doing anything. Without further ado, let's board. So here we have the spacesuit. I like to put this on ahead of time just so that I don't forget to do it later, but one of the things you'll notice here are the gear options. For those of you who are Let's Players and streamers, or those who like a little bit more leisurely of a pace of gameplay during reading, here's a hint. These options for time pausing are helpful. It doesn't stop time in every circumstance, but it will definitely help you explore. They're not strictly necessary, and if you're playing on your own, it keeps you a bit more on your toes to leave them standard. So one thing to note is that you start facing forward. I like taking off this way, but I'm going to go into the landing takeoff cam. It might be easier for inexperienced pilots, and it certainly helps me when I want to make more precision landings. Okay, time to take off. I'm going to hit the Go Up button. I'm using my keyboard, but yours might be on a controller, or you might have changed your controls. Don't let it scare you, these are actually pretty easy, and I'll be describing it anyway. So I'm going to press the Go Up button and away we go. We want to get away from the planet, and we want to get away going fast enough so gravity doesn't pull us down for a bit. Gravity is a thing in this game. If you go fast enough, of course, you'll never fall back down again, but you may end up losing track of where you are. Let's go to a planet. We're going to go to Giant's Deep without landing, because it won't show too much in the spoiler department, and we'll only be there for a moment. Since I'm going to be talking whilst I find it, I'm going to send myself off in a particular direction at high speed at this point. You probably won't have to do this. This is just to buy me some time for words, so just give me a moment. Okay, we're going to find Giant's Deep. Now, all the planets have orbits that are like they're stuck on various spots in a pie tin, and most of the time you're looking at the pie tin edge on. That means the planets are likely to be in line with the sun. So if you can't find what you're looking for, try following the lines of the sun and planets you can already see. It may help. Locking on to Giant's Deep, you'll notice that it's drifting sideways against the stars a little bit. This will be important later on for more advanced flight. If we engage the autopilot, the first phase it does is to cancel out our sideways motion without getting closer to your target. The autopilot's a bit dumb. It doesn't consider nearby moons and planets, so make sure you're sufficiently clear. The second phase is to go faster than the target for about half the distance of the target. Notice the speed is going up and the distance is going down. The third phase is to go slower for the remaining distance. Notice the speed going down and the distance is still going down. It takes time to brake. If the autopilot didn't goof, and it sometimes does, it will deposit you right above the surface. It won't take you down if it manages to stop. That's your job. You should also know you can cancel the autopilot at any time. It's not a smart autopilot. It will crash into things partway to your target if anything gets in the way. So get a nice clean line to your target before starting. I don't want to land here for reasons. So let's pretend I just took off from Giant's Deep. I'm looking to go back home. We're going to zip back there and land. So we're clear of the planet below. And let's look around and find home. Lock onto it and engage autopilot. Once again, you'll see the phases of autopilot operation. Phase 1 was alignment. Phase 2 is accelerating towards the destination. You'll notice here that I may have to abort the autopilot because something is in the way. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go sideways a fair bit just to get out of the way of Timber Hearth. It's normal, you may have to do this. But now we're clear, and I'm going to just re-engage the autopilot. Phase 1, remove sideways motion. Phase 2, go faster. Phase 3, when we get to phase 3. So it is in fact spending all of its time right now just aligning. This is just to get rid of sideways motion. Now it's going to accelerate part way. And now it's going to decelerate. Then now I'm ready to land. I'm going to go into the landing cam mode, and I'm going to give myself a little bit of downward thrust. That's my go down button, just to get myself moving down a little bit faster. But I want to make sure I don't get going too quickly. I'm not going to try a precision landing at this point. I'm just going to try to find a flat spot, but I could land pretty much anywhere. If I need to buy myself some time, I just apply a little bit of go up to get myself away from the surface. But once I'm ready, I just plop myself down. All right, one more. We're going to go to the Addle Rock. Time to do a smooth operation straight out to our local moon. So I'm going to take off again. I'm going to get out of landing mode and just fly around. Oh, hey, look, I found the Addle Rock. Lock onto it. Nothing's immediately in my way. I'm going to hit the autopilot. It's going to go through all of the phases, and I'm ready to land. So here we go. Now I'm going to give myself a little bit of downward thrust with my go down button, just so I get a little closer. I'm going to try landing in that big crater up top, so I'm going to make sure I'm not coming in too quickly. I'm going to use my forward, back, left, and right buttons in this mode to adjust where I come down at. And there we go. And I'm down inside the crater. And that's it. Get into space, aim at something, lock on if you can, make sure the path to it is clear and there's nothing around you to bump into. Engage the autopilot, be prepared for the autopilot to screw up, get there, and then land. You could play almost the entire game this way. Almost, but not quite. There are a few times when you have to pilot manually, and it behaves a lot like your spacesuit when you're doing the zero-G training back in the village. So next section, let's get some practice doing that. So we're back on the Addle Rock, but what if we don't want to use the autopilot, or we can't use it for some reason? We're going to go to the comet, the interloper. We're probably going to overshoot it a bit. We're going to land on it somewhere, and then we're going to come home. Don't think it can be easy? Let's see. First, let's take off, and let's look around to make sure that we don't have anything in our immediate way. Now, having done that, I'm going to lock on to nothing, and we're going to try to find the interloper. It's a little tricky to spot because there's just a blob in the sky. A little bit of a tail on it. Being a bit of a sneaky beggar today. There it is. All right. Now we're not going to use the autopilot, but what we're going to do is mimic what the autopilot does. We see our speed and distance, but what we want to find right now are these white arrows. They tell us how much side slip we have. This is the speed that we have going either left or right or up or down that is not just front and back motion. Before we go anywhere, let's try to zero these out. Why? Because then we know when we go forward, we're going directly towards it and not weirdly sideways or up or something. We have two ways to do this. One is to use the match velocity button. This tries to make you stationary relative to the target. I'm hitting that now, and you can see that all our speed is dropping, and eventually you'll see the white arrows go away. When the white arrows go away, you're ready to go forward. So, forward we go. It's quite possible that the white arrows will come back. That's because you and the planets in the comet are not all following straight lines because of gravity. This is something you hopefully saw back in Timber Hearth in the museum upstairs. So as you fly, you can do the second way to remove that sideways motion. Use your left, right, and up and down buttons to take away those white arrows. You can go as fast as you like, but remember it takes just as much time to slow down as speed up. You can't stop on a dime. So a good rule of thumb is to go faster for less than half the distance and then slow down for the other half. Keep fixing up those white arrows. As you fly. And as you can see, I did overshoot a little bit. But all I have to do is keep correcting for that side slip and then keep approaching. Don't accelerate straight towards anything without correcting them. And don't fire for more than about half the distance. That's a good rule of thumb. Then reverse your thrust and come back. And slow down. Now fixing up those arrows can also be done by way of, again, doing the match velocity. And this is a really good tactic when you're going fairly slow. But you just want to get yourself stable relative to the surface. We're here. So let's just land. So we do have a lock on the thing. So let's drop on down, apply thrusters, and we're down. Now, of course, I could easily try to land on this thing without using the landing cam. You can see here that I can go sideways and orbit a little bit. I can cancel out that sideways motion, and I can use the match velocity button just to get me stable. I can then point at it, and then at the last minute, I can just tip up and apply a little bit of go up thrust to slow myself down. And there we go. Now we can get out and walk around, but I want to get back home and get some more flight time in. So off we go. Same procedure. Let's take off, and let's see if we can try to find Timber Hearth. And there it is. So we don't have the sun between us and it, and we could use the autopilot, but let's not do that. So we're going to first zero out our motion, our sideways motion, and we're then going to accelerate. It's about 20 kilometers away, so I'm going to accelerate forward at for about 10 kilometers, all the while correcting for that sideways motion. And I'm going to do this without using match velocity, because why not? Okay, now I have to reverse thrust. Now I could use the match velocity to do that for me. And I notice that it's coming at me a little quick, so I'm actually going to intentionally miss it. Probably shouldn't have accelerated for quite that long, but that's all right. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let myself slide by, and I'm going to correct my sideways motion while again approaching it. Now you see, I'm still heading away from it because I have to bleed off all that speed I built up. I just came at it a little bit fast. So let's do this again. We're 11 kilometers away, so let's go for about 4 kilometers in and then reverse thrust. Let's try that. A little bit less than half. So that'll take me to about 6 kilometers. feeling like I kind of want to slow down now, and that's fine. I don't have to get there super fast, and if I really wanted to be efficient, I'd just use the autopilot. Alright, so I'm getting kind of close, and I got some sideways motion and forward motion, so here we go. I'm just going to use my match velocity. Take all the pain out of flying. I could have done that manually, and that's fine. So why is sideways motion such a big deal? Well, if I get going sideways fast enough, which is what I'm doing now, and then I just point at the planet, why can't I get there? All I'm doing is going around and around the thing. And this is because basically what I'm doing is orbiting it, except instead of gravity pulling me around, it's my own thrusters. Getting rid of that sideways motion, like I'm doing now, is critical to understanding why you keep missing things if you just point at a planet and try to get there. There's no friction in space. This isn't like a plane. A plane, any sort of sideways motion like this, anywhere in an atmosphere for that matter, and all of that will be bled off for you. Up in space, you have to do it yourself. So, coming in a little fast. So I'm going to turn myself around and take off again. I'm going to try to land exactly on the pad. So I'm above the pad right now, and I'm using my forward and back thrusters instead of up and down in order to get the right height. But that's because I'm not in landing cam mode, and I'm pointed at the planet. So let's go into landing cam mode. So now I'm just going to adjust my thrust a little bit. Come in on that landing pad. And we're home. All of that done without using the autopilot. What's the key to that? Let's review for a moment. The keys to this are when you're up in space and you're trying to get somewhere. If you can lock onto it and find those white arrows. They indicate how much sideways motion you have. The safest thing to do is to zero that out and then head for it. And then correct as you go that sideways motion. Once you get close enough, you have to start decelerating probably about halfway through your journey, maybe a little bit earlier. But once you get close enough, you should be able to use match velocity, or if you become a good enough pilot, zero all that out yourself. So one more thing to consider. What if you can't lock onto something? So let's pretend that happens. Because if you can't lock onto something, you also don't have this landing cam. So those are good things to know about. So I've turned off the locking by just clicking into space. So let's say I'm out here somewhere, and I want to I want to land on the Addle Rock without crashing into my home planet. In order to get rid of that sideways motion, watch the Addle Rock. It's moving against the background of the stars. If I want to be able to remove that sideways motion, do exactly the same thing as with the arrows, except just get the motion against the stars to stop. Then you can start carefully heading towards it. Now, if you can't lock onto an object and you still want to land on it, you're just going to have to eyeball the speed because you don't have any of the indicators, and you don't have your landing cam if you can't lock onto it. What you can do, of course, get rid of that sideways motion, try to get yourself stable, point at the thing, go down a little bit, and at the last moment, you can tilt yourself up and apply a little bit of maybe backwards and a little bit of upward thrust in order to keep yourself from crashing into something. And you can land just like I do without the landing cam. So the same thing applies here. Let's review. When you want to get somewhere, find out what its sideways motion is. Try to get rid of all or most of that before you head forward. When you go forward, don't go more than about halfway at full throttle. You, in fact, want to cut that quite a bit short, as you saw in my video. Start thrusting backwards after that point, and then when you get much closer, adjust your height to taste with the forward and backward motion, and then use match velocity to take all the hurt out of it. Just stop. This is way easier when you have those white arrows when you're locked on, but if you don't have them, use the background of the stars as your indication of how much sideways motion you have going on. And that's it. With this knowledge, you should be able to get to most places in the star system, even if you want to pilot it yourself. And for heaven's sake, if you're frustrated by it, use the autopilot. It's a great tool. There's no reason not to use it, and the only thing you have to be careful of is that when you activate it, you don't want to be around anything, and you don't want anything between you and the target. And if you get pretty good with the autopilot, you can almost use it right after launch, or at least as soon as you can lock onto something. It just takes a little bit of practice. That's it. That's all I have. Next up, I'm going to be running around and doing some timing operations, flying places with reasonable speed to show you how much time you can actually have to look around the place. Won't be particularly picturesque and tries to avoid spoilers, but it will give you an understanding of the amount of actual time you have. Hi, this is Codeweaver again. My plan here is to spend about 20 minutes making a run between my home on Timber Hearth and a common first target in the game, the planet Brittle Hollow, as well as Attlerock, Timber Hearth's primary moon. This is a little about efficient movement on the surface, but mostly about demonstrating that you can get to places quickly enough to have a fair bit of time to explore. My previous segment talked about how to do the flight, so go back about 20 minutes to watch that. I want to be clear. This is no kind of fancy speedrun. This uses basic flight to get to places, to show you can get to exploring on foot. You likely have to visit places more than once to fully experience and explore them. But the time pressure should be an occasional challenge, not a permanent pain point. My commentary is likely to be a bit more freeform, incidentally, and seeing as I'm literally running out the clock while trying to avoid spoilers, it will not show the bulk of the wonderful art style and story and visuals and lore of the game. It will involve a lot of running. Love the running. But I'm loosely proving a point. Without further ado, let's start the clock. In fact, quite literally, because I'm going to turn on an on-screen timer, just so that you know I'm being slightly honest and don't have to look down to the video timer. So, let's go try this out. So here we go. I've already got the launch codes. I have fully explored the main area of the opening area of the game to get them and to visit all of our wonderful denizens. Love this game. So I'm ready to get on board the spaceship. Now I'm going to suit up now because it's, as I said in my previous clips, it's really embarrassing to forget later and leave your ship. I'm going to draw extra attention again to the gear options here, where there is an option to freeze time while reading stuff in the game. Now, by default, I think a couple of these aren't on, and I didn't have them on when I originally played this. But if you're a Let's Player or a live streamer, or you just like taking your time when you're doing the reading parts of this, and there's some just beautiful lore everywhere, it's almost entirely the point of the game, actually, this might be of help to you. So, it's there. Use it. It's a great idea. Right, I'm in the ship. I'm going to gloss over how to do the flying, but I'm just going to lift straight off, and I'm going to look for Brittle Hollow, which should be off to my right when I start. There it is. And I'm up far enough, I think, that I can engage the autopilot, and you can see it zeroing out the side-slipping stuff. And just about dropped into the atmosphere again, but it's now accelerating. It's going to accelerate about halfway and then decelerate. And it should drop us off just above the surface, where I can then move to whatever spots I want. So, again, I'm going to pick a spot that's fairly unobtrusive here, and yeah, I'll go into landing cam. Why not? I don't often use this to land, but I want to demonstrate that it doesn't take a super genius flyer to necessarily explore all the spots here. This is a really good idea because it enables me to do stuff like that. I can land pretty cleanly, and now I'm on the surface. Pretty cool. All right. So I've already got my suit on. I'm fully filled up on fuel. I'm going to be doing what you would call a great circle route. If you know what that is, that's basically going around the planet in roughly the most efficient way possible in a circle. But I'm going to take a path that avoids a lot of the super interesting stuff on the surface, because really you should play this game yourself. It's going to be impossible to completely avoid seeing things out of the corner of your eye, but I'm just going to walk around the planet. The point of this is to show that if you got here the way I just did, you will have quite a bit of time to actually explore. And I'm going to demonstrate this by walking around the entire planet and right back to my ship again, which you could use that time for exploring, and get on board and take off and go back home and do something else there. Probably the same thing, actually. This is running out the clock. I can't think of an easier way to do this that shows something interesting on screen, but doesn't kill the complete sense of joy and wonder about experiencing this game yourself for the first time. Seriously, if you like story and lore, you like mysteries, and you like the space theme, play this game. Like, now, go buy it. Seriously. Tell me what you think. Even if you don't like it, because, oddly enough, my reason for making this video started with somebody kind of not liking aspects of the game, and that's fine. Come tell me what you felt about it. Anyway, haven't quite got this whole great circle thing quite right, but we're doing okay. Doesn't have to be exact. You can actually see my ship is kind of below us, or on the other side of the planet. The antipode, I think, is the word, or antipode. I think some people pronounce it, but anyway. You'll notice I'm walking normally most of the way. There's a reason for this. Partly it's to burn time. But the other reason is to not go super, super fast to slam into things. I'm going to do a slightly faster go around the planet a little bit later. But for now, what I want to do is show that you can get around. For part of the reason being is a lot of people call out the fact that jumping is a little odd. You get the jump on the release of the space bar or whatever your button happens to be, rather than on the first tap, which most games do. And I know this annoys a lot of people. I just stumbled into it myself. I think they're trying to tie it into the physics system more. I'm going to turn on my light. But, it's a game that could bug a lot of people. I got used to it. It really didn't bug me all that much. But the reason why I don't think it's that big a deal anyway is because of what I just did there. You got a rocket jetpack on the back of your spacesuit, and it's not just the thrusters. When I'm in the air, for example, I can go left, right, and up and down and whatever. The gravity's a bit strong here for the basic thrusters of the suit. It's meant for space. But you do have this emergency thruster thing going on, which means that you can basically hop up quite great distances. And I just do this all the time. As long as I can do it, I do it. I don't bother with the regular jump. And since I have my spacesuit on all the time, it's just no real skin off my nose. I just literally bounce everywhere. I mean, if I'm in a low fuel situation, then sure, I might try to conserve it. But little puffs like this don't really spend much, and you just hop around surfaces. Except when I do that, but that's okay. This isn't meant to be a speed run. This is meant to be demonstrate that you've got lots of time to explore. Because for all this time that I'm spending literally just walking around this rocky planet, I could be looking into all the interesting things that are going on it, all the history and lore, to try to solve the mystery of this solar system. So I've almost gotten all the way around. The ship's coming up. You can see it coming not over the horizon, but rather under it. And I'm literally going to make a beeline for it. Here we go. Let's do this big jump. Wah! And I went quite a bit further than I intended with that jump, but that's all right. 3 minutes of oxygen remaining. That's my limiting factor. It's not my fuel. There is that. But there is ways to get oxygen other than your ship, and I'm almost back at my ship anyway. So, let's see. I'm coming up on 13 minutes. I guess that would be like about 8 minutes in, and I'm already back to my ship. So let's get on board. Yay! Let's refuel us, and the oxygen already refuels, and that heals us up if we're hurt. We have just gone around the whole damn planet. We have gotten here only in about a minute to get here, and then 7 or 8 minutes to walk around the planet, and that's it. We went around the whole thing. And we're still not done. we're going to go somewhere else now. In fact, we're going to go back home because I don't want to show off all sorts of crazy things in this game. But it's going to take us a moment to try to find that. Because it might be on the other side of the sun. You can actually lock onto things, at least some of the time, via the... There it is. Via the map user interface. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay in space mode. I talked about how the white arrows are how much you're slipping sideways. You can cancel that out manually if you want to keep going forward. You can engage the autopilot. I'm actually going to disable the autopilot. You can use the match velocity in order to do it, except that also takes out your forward motion. So I'm going to actually match velocity, but I'm going to go forward at the same time. 17 kilometers. Cut that in half. We're at about 8. Take a little off of that. Let's say 5. And so we're going to go down to about 13 kilometers before we start turning around. And I'm gonna zero out the side slip. And up slip, I suppose. Whoa! Whoa, 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 whoa. Did not decelerate soon enough, but actually it doesn't seem to have harmed us. That's all right. Clearly, I could go a little bit further than I'd intended. You can see I'm slipping sideways. That's all right. I'm looking around Timber Hearth to see if I can find our primary landing zone. I don't mind sliding past it sideways, but when I do want to stop, I have to zero out that sideways motion. I have to in order to go at the planet. So that's what I'm going to do. See the Addle Rock up in the corner there. I'm coming in on the main area here. Just for convenience, I'm going to use the stop all velocity thing, the match velocity thing. I'm going to go into landing cam. I get a little bit closer, and that's going to involve a little bit of down thrust. And I can use the controls. I want to keep myself off the surface. Use the controls to come around the planet a little bit. This is me pressing... Oh. I've got a little bit too fast away. So I'm going to come in. See, I've been doing this for a while, and it still takes me a little bit of practice. But that's all right. I'm trying to be really exact here. There is no reason for me to land back on the main platform. I could land anywhere on Timber Hearth and just walk. But to illustrate a point, I took the time to do this landing just to show that I've got lots of time. I really do. Like, I'm down to 10 minutes and 35 seconds. So I've spent about 10 minutes going out to Brittle Hollow, landing, walking around the entire planet, and getting all the way back here. And I still got time to burn. And in fact, I landed right at our main docking point. Hey, look at that. I even got the observatory in my view. You know what? Let's do it again. This time what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Addle Rock. And again, I'm going to use the autopilot just to make it convenient for myself. I am going to I'm going to actually come at this manually because I can, and because I'm showing off a bit. Yes, I know. A little bit of a rough landing. I could have done that better, but that's all right. I'm here. So I already fueled up. I got my suit on. I am going to boot it around this thing. It's actually a shadow of the planet. You got to be real careful, actually, because you can quite literally... You can quite literally go into orbit and leave Addle Rock if you're not careful. So... Okay, I have gone a great circle all the way around the Addle Rock. Yay us. Hop on board the ship. Let's give ourselves a refuel. And let's buckle up. Where are we going to go now? Well, again, I don't want to show too much about the awesome things that are all over this game. So I'm going to actually go back home, but I'm going to land somewhere new. And I'm going to do another great circle run. And here we go. Whoa! A little bit harsh. Oh, and that's what happens when you come in too hard. You know what? That's okay. I'm going to leave this in the video because it's going to allow me to illustrate a quick little repair job that I'm going to do here. Boy, that's slightly embarrassing. But you know what? Any landing you walk away from. And, you know, I'm being honest about this. Sometimes that's what happens. But that's okay. You repair your ship, and you move on. And next time, I'll try to come in a little less quickly, because that was just me getting cocky. That's fine. So, you see these guys from the main village. I don't mind showing them here. If you've explored the main village at all, you'll just have seen these in the landing cam. Feel free to explore them. I'm going to go around the entire thing. Go a little bit faster. The gravity's like 1.0 here. Watch your gravity, by the way. Heavy gravities, you can't really lift off from like this. Maybe these little micro hops. It's actually pretty easy to do this because most of the ground is uniform. You just got to watch for some of the really big craters. Hopping around like a little bunny. I'm not going to edit that out, even though it makes me sound ridiculous. All right, so I just want to make sure I don't fall into anything because there are some enormous craters in here, and slamming into the walls would be kind of bad. Or, you know, falling 300 feet. You can see the ship coming up over the horizon, so that's good. Let's go and get back in the ship. So, quite a bit more fuel being used here. That's fine. I'll be able to get back to my ship. So the big thing here is, again, demonstrating you've got a lot of time to explore. There's stuff all over every world, things to explore in space. Go and do it. Find all those neat places. You've got time. Yes, you're going to get caught out somewhere with not enough time to do things you want to do. Then just go back there because you can. And because this game's fun. Just going there is fun. Let's buckle up. We still got the Adelrock targeted. So we're going to boot it back up to there so we can say that we've done that. We've got quite a few minutes left in this cycle here. You know what? Actually, we're going to side-slip that. We're going to make a looping pass around Giant's Deep, because we did that in the other video. All I have to do is find it and not slam into something. Where are you? I want to find it fast, if I can. There it is. So align the flight trajectory. Let's do all the good things. So it says zeroing out my sideways up and down motion so that we can take a straight run at it. Here we go. I'm just going to let it do it because I'm not proud. It's okay. If I wanted to do this myself, I could, and I often do because it's fun. But this is a demonstration about time. Also should be a demonstration about quiet, except I'm prattling, so you get to listen to my voice. So, sometimes the autopilot literally dumps me into the ocean on this one if it thinks I come at it too fast. I'm not going to describe any of the things that are going on here. I'm just going to loop around the back side of this. And I'm going to head out into space, and more importantly, I'm going to make sure I'm not falling into the sun. And I'm going to head back to Timber Hearth. Now, this is a bit risky. I'm engaging the autopilot, but as you can see, it's slipping in behind the sun. Now, if I try to let the autopilot take me the entire direction, it's literally going to take me through the sun. It's not a smart autopilot. But that's okay, because we have brains, and we can stop the autopilot. So, here we go. Actually, the way we're orbiting, it might clear the sun, but I'm not going to take any risks. I'm going to, incidentally, by the way, you can hold down the R key and use the mouse and like roll along the long axis if you just want a better view and orientation. I'm going to go sideways around the sun explicitly just to make sure I clear it because I don't want to die. But now that I'm mostly past it, I can re-engage the autopilot, and it's just going to work things out for me. I could cancel out that side slip myself. Are you gonna do it for me? It's going to take a while, but yep, there it is. So it's going to cancel out that side slip, and then once it does so, it's going to engage the main thrusters. It's probably going to do this more efficiently than I could. How are we doing on time? There we got enough time. We undershot target. Sometimes the autopilot just says, you know what, I don't know what you were trying to do, but I did what I could, and just re-engage the autopilot if you have to. It's not meant to be smart. Fledgling space program. This is literally what you could do with spit and baling twine, assuming, you know, you could seal a spittin' baling twine spaceship against the elements, but you know, be that as it may. I'm going to sort of manually zoom across this outside of landing mode for a moment, and I am going to take the gutsy risk of trying to land on the main platform myself. Do not try this at home, kids, unless you're feeling really gutsy. Let's try this. I cannot believe I did that. I really can't, and no damage to the ship either. I probably wouldn't try to do that on such a tight target. But there you go. So, we have a few minutes left remaining. I'm going to maybe just sit here and talk for a minute. I don't have anything planned for the outro for this. I guess my point is, yeah, if you couldn't get used to the flight, if you can't get places, that would stop you from exploring stuff. And there's so much to explore here, and it's such a delight. At least it was a delight for me to do so. I love this game. I love this game for the mystery. I love it for the story. I love it for the living characters that we see and the civilizations that we don't. There's so many motifs in this that were both surprising and delightful. And so if you can't get around fast enough to places, you won't be able to see stuff. That was part of why I did the flight section of this. And once you do kind of get enough of that under your belt to be able to get places, and you will get better, running around on the surface and spending the time to explore, there's lots of time to do that. You're going to die a lot of times. You're going to have to get back to places more than once. But the time that you can spend once you're at places is actually fairly good. It's more than enough to explore most of an area, and if you want to be really thorough, maybe spend 2 or 3 visits to an area. And I think you can do that. Right. So we're about a minute away from where I wanted to stop this anyway, and I've prattled on long enough. Go and get this game. I adored it. It's not going to be for everybody. Some people are going to get frustrated. That's okay. Sometimes it takes time to push past problem points, and sometimes it's not worth it for the game. For me, I didn't get stopped by problems in this game. I sort of got past the ones that bugged me, and not many did. I love the flight in this, but all the cool stuff is where you get to. Plus the flight, if you like the flight. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. Go get this game. I adored it. And I just wanted to demonstrate you could fly places and look around with time to spare. Thanks so much. I think that's my web-based alarm. Yes, it is. And that would be my cell phone alarm, because I had to have one locally because I wasn't looking at the recorded screen. Thanks so much for listening to me. Codeweaver signing out. And I hope you have a wonderful day.